The Republican Party is a party of hypocrisy, claiming to be pro-life while cutting Medicaid by $1 trillion, having the real president Elon Musk abandon one of his 13 to 15 kids every day while claiming to be pro-family, and of course, crying lawfare at the Biden administration while actively engaging in the weaponization of the Justice Department under Donald Trump. And nowhere is that more clear than this assault we have seen on AOC simply for combating Donald Trump's illegal immigration plan. And we just got the latest example of that with a top Republican who says he wants AOC jailed for warning her constituents about the ways that Donald Trump will attack the Constitution, break the law, and go after them with this immigration plan. We are going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we get into this clip of a Republican attacking AOC, I want to hear Jamie Raskin call out that very MAGA hypocrisy right here.
But in our time, Donald Trump's crime spree throughout American society has tested the hard-won principle that we are all equal and that no one is above the law. The Supreme Court that Trump has repeatedly bragged about packing and stacking to destroy Roe versus Wade not only brought the curtain down on the freedom and health security of tens of millions of American women trapped in GOP-controlled anti-choice states, it also made the president absolutely immune from prosecution for crimes he commits under the so-called core functions of his office, presumptively immune from prosecution for other so-called official acts, and subject to prosecution only for private, unofficial acts. After more than 2 centuries, this bracing new taxonomy for licensing presidential criminality was announced by the Roberts Court in a 6-3 decision in U.S. versus Trump. It creates presidential exceptionalism, a plainly dangerous doctrine which overturned a unanimous ruling of the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. But even that shocking burst of finger painting on the Constitution isn't enough for Trump and his crowd, who seek now complete immunity and impunity from the laws that bind the rest of us. It's not even enough for them to appoint a nationwide crew of embarrassingly servile judges like Aileen Cannon, who may as well be on the bench in Putin's Russia, as she shows little fidelity to the rule of law but fastidious devotion to the whims of her dear leader. Now they want to pass something called the Pepper Act to let Trump and his accomplices get their political corruption and election-fixing cases removed from any state court in the land and put in front of far more submissive and pliant Trump appointees in federal court. Donald Trump tried this move in one of his criminal cases, the one in New York City, where he was found guilty of 34 felony criminal counts of falsifying business records to cover up hush money payments he had paid to a mistress before the 2016 election. There, his judge rejected his request to move everything to federal court, saying Trump had failed to meet both the current statutory and constitutional requirements for doing that. As Judge Hellerstein observed in his ruling, the evidence overwhelmingly suggests that the matter was a purely personal item of the president, a cover-up of an embarrassing event. Hush money paid to an adult film star is not related to a president's official acts. It does not reflect in any way the color of the president's official duties. Removal to federal court is reserved for cases where there is an actual federal defense. Let's say the president was tried in Florida state court for assaulting a citizen, but his defense was that the alleged victim was a soldier, and he was just administering fair punishment as commander-in-chief of the army in a time of actual conflict. In that hypothetical case, it would be removed so the federal judiciary could handle the federal question defense. There was plainly no federal question defense in Trump's hush money record falsification scheme. But now, scrambling to appease Trump, an incorrigible recidivist lawbreaker who is looking for a way to disappear all of his state court civil and criminal prosecutions, our colleagues proposed to amend the law so that a president or vice president, or even a former president or vice president, can remove a state civil or criminal prosecution to federal court whenever that case is brought, quote, for or relating to any act while in office.
It is the Trump administration weaponizing the DOJ. We saw a threatening letter sent to Congressman Robert Garcia, who we talked to on the show after he called out Elon Musk. And now We see Republicans actively calling for an investigation for the jailing of, for the deportation of AOC, all for warning her constituents about Donald Trump's illegal immigration plan. It's insane, and we can see it happen right here.
I think we do an oath, right, that we're supposed to uphold the Constitution, not tell people how, to evade the Constitution. So I didn't seem like that's part of my job description, to tell people that here's how you don't comply with the law. So I think it sure seems like she's violating the law. And, look, we need to have equal protection and equal enforcement of the law. And if she's done something wrong, I hope Tom Homan does his job and prosecutes her to the full extent of the law.
If we want to talk about holding someone accountable for their crimes, it's not AOC who didn't break the law. It's Rick Scott who did, while stealing millions of dollars from Medicare recipients. I think that's the guy breaking the law. I think that's the guy who should maybe see a little jail time. And this is crazy that Republicans who claim to love the Constitution are trying to go on a full-fledged attack on AOC for simply sharing the constitutional rights of her constituents with them, so that they aren't coerced and scared and threatened into doing what Donald Trump wants. It is insane, the level of intimidation that is going on during this administration, but it's really all they have is intimidation and distraction. It's the only thing they can use to really get you to not pay attention to how bad things are going. And if you needed a little glimpse into how bad things are going, I think we could just take a look at the Republican town halls being canceled across the country because they are so afraid of their constituents. And someone who talked about that and Donald Trump's failing immigration plan was Congressman Robert Garcia right here.
The administration inside that building reportedly growing frustrated by the pace of deportations. The New York Times reports the Trump administration is facing issues detaining undocumented immigrants and transporting them from the United States. In an interview with the Times, border czar Tom Homan said he told the president they need to increase the number of arrests, which has slowed since Trump first took office. But deportations have not kept pace with the arrests, resulting in a surge of people waiting in ICE detention. The Times reports this stems from financial shortfalls as well as diplomatic challenges with securing agreements with other countries to efficiently deport immigrants. Meanwhile, President Trump's plan to detain 30,000 immigrants at Guantanamo Bay is facing mounting legal, logistical, and financial challenges. High costs, including military flights costing between $23,000 and $27,000 per detainee, have raised concerns within the administration. Tents built for detainees lack basic amenities and fail to meet ICE standards, and military flights to the base have slowed. NBC News reports there is a growing recognition within the administration that it was a political decision that just is not working. Two U.S. defense officials and a congressional official told NBC News cheaper alternatives on U.S. soil are being considered, although President Trump remains committed to the plan. Let's bring in Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia of California. Also at the table in Washington, White House reporter for the New York Times, Tyler Pager. Good morning to you both. Congressman, I'll start with you. So much to talk with you about, but let's start with some of that news about the frustration apparently from the Trump administration that deportations aren't happening fast enough. Of course, this was a cornerstone of his campaign pitch. He was going to get illegal immigrants out of this country. I would note that the daily pace of deportations right now from the Trump administration is slower than it was last year under the Biden administration. What's your reaction to all of this?
Well, look, I think obviously Donald Trump likes to make up things and create his own facts. And the truth is that when you look at not just deportations, but also what's happening at the border, the slowdown at the border actually started during Joe Biden's presidency. I mean, it's been a year and a half, almost 2 years now, that we've actually started to see decreases at the border. You've actually seen the change that Donald Trump so wanted to see happen during the Biden administration. So Donald Trump likes to cook his own numbers. The truth is that deportations happen, especially of violent criminals, of people that shouldn't be in this country. That was something that Joe Biden did. Other presidents did as well. And so I think Donald Trump likes to create his own stories, to create his own numbers. And of course, we can't trust anything that he actually has to say.
Tyler, we also have seen that the number of deportations that are happening in military flights, because they were so expensive, has, I think, almost completely stopped, if not stopped altogether. Is there in the White House, when you talk to your sources, any sense, we've been speaking a lot about confusion this morning, that the policy is not as thought out or enduring as perhaps they hoped it was going to be?
Yeah, look, this is obviously a huge priority of the president. This is what he campaigned on. We heard him devote a lot of time to this in his joint address to Congress this week. There is frustration, as my colleagues at the Times reported, about sort of the pace. One of the things that Trump wants to be able to brag about is the numbers, the amount of people that are being deported, the amount of people being brought to Guantanamo Bay. We've seen him latch on to that as it relates to Elon Musk's government efficiency initiative of cutting contracts, being able to list out those numbers and programs that have been cut. So I think that's one of the frustrations in the White House, is that those numbers are not at the level that Trump is excited to brag about. And again, it is, all of these policies are complicated to execute. And they are still just about a month into this administration, and I think still working through some of the ways in which they need to coordinate across the government to execute on this plan, which is much more complicated than it appears to be.
Well, so there's the reaction inside the White House to one of the president's top campaign trail promises and the way it's being implemented. And then there's the way that major cities across the country are seeing the impact of these policies. You saw several of these mayors, including the mayors of Boston, Chicago, Denver, and New York, in front of the committee that you are on yesterday. In your line of questioning, though, and many other Democrats did this, the focus was on New York City Mayor Eric Adams. You questioned him about allegations of a quid pro quo, some kind of political agreement between the dropping of his charges from the Department of Justice and the help that he is going to give the Trump administration on carrying out their immigration agenda. Tom Homan, one of the top officials within this administration, called your line of questioning disgusting. Your reaction to that, and then the larger conversation that we are still having about Mayor Adams and where his loyalties are on this, to his constituents or to the admin.
I mean, what's disgusting is a mayor who is essentially accepting over $100,000 of gifts and travel and not actually properly reporting it.
Republicans are too afraid to face their constituents. And now that we're on the topic of AOC, it reminded me of that video of her town hall when the people in the crowd, ostensibly Republicans, are chanting like AOC has got to go. And they're doing it like to the beat of a drum, and she's like dancing. I posted about it on Twitter this morning. It's like, those are like the two sides of this. Like, Republicans literally will not face their constituents, while AOC is just dancing along to complaints from MAGA. She does not care. She's going to continue to fight back, and so are we on this channel every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.